Good afternoon. The Subcommittee on Research and Science Education will come to order. Pursuant to notice, the Subcommittee on Research and Science Education meets to consider the following measure, H.R. 1867, the National Science Foundation Authorization Act of 2007. We'll now proceed with the markup, beginning with opening statements, and I'll begin. I'd like to thank everybody for being here, first of all, especially my dear friend Vern Ehlers for his work on this. And the tradition of this committee has truly been a bipartisan effort, and I'm pleased with the product we've produced. This afternoon, the committee will mark up H.R. 1867, the National Science Foundation Authorization Act of 2007. Dr. Ehlers and several other members of the subcommittee joined me in introducing this bill, which was developed with input from a diverse range of stakeholders in the research and STEM education communities. NSF is the only federal agency whose mission is to support science and engineering across all disciplines. Currently, NSF funds 20% of all basic research conducted at American colleges and universities. In many fields, such as mathematics, computer science, and the social science, NSF is the major source of federal backing. NSF is a proposal-driven agency. This means that the overwhelming majority of research grants funded by NSF are unsolicited, thereby helping to cultivate a scientific research enterprise in which the capacity for creativity and innovation is unrivaled throughout the world. NSF also has a mission to achieve excellence in U.S. science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education at all levels and in all settings, from kindergarten through postdoctoral training, from classrooms to science museums to online resources. The National Science Foundation was last authorized by Congress in 2002. In that act, Congress authorized a 5-year doubling for NSF. Unfortunately, in fiscal 2007, the final year of the previous authorization, NSF's actual budget is only $5.9 billion, about $3 billion short of what was authorized in the last bill. On the one hand, I'm disappointed that we did not get more for NSF in the annual appropriations give and take. At the same time, I'm optimistic about NSF's prospects for increasing budgets in the next several years. What makes this authorization different is that we have the support of the administration, the leadership in the House, Congress as a whole, and leading voices in industry to pass legislation that helps keep our scientific enterprise and our capacity for innovation #1 in the world. As we see high-paying jobs outsourced, our children graduating high school well behind their international peers in understanding basic science, China surging ahead in export of high-tech products, it has finally sunk in. Funding basic research and teaching our kids math and science has a huge impact on our economy, on our competitiveness, and on the well-being of our population. H.R. 1867 will authorize nearly $21 billion for NSF over 3 years, representing an annual growth rate of just over 7%. Of that total, $16.4 billion would be available to fund research primarily through competitive grants. $2.8 billion would be available for STEM education programs, including $765 million for 3 critical K-12 programs, Math and Science Partnerships, Noyce Teacher Scholarships, and the Tech Talent Program. And an additional $790 million would be available for construction of world-class research facilities and equipment. But NSF cannot keep up with the growing research and education budgets without support for a growing workforce and maintenance of its own infrastructure, including such seemingly mundane needs as office space and computers for its employees. Therefore, in this bill, we've also authorized an agency operation budget that grows at the same 7% rate for a total of $925 million over 3 years. The remaining $50 million would fund the National Science Board, the oversight body for the Foundation, and the Office of the Inspector General. In addition to authorizing appropriations for the Foundation, H.R. 1867 contains several other important provisions. Section 3 provides specific funding for the Advanced Technology Education Program, which to date has helped create 2,000 programs and 16,800 courses that successfully prepare 2-year college students across the country for high-tech workforce. Section 3 also increases the cap on awards for major research instrumentation, stepwise as the total MRI budget grows in order to accommodate a wider range of state-of-the-art research tools. Section 5 requires an evaluation of NSF's role in supporting interdisciplinary research, which is increasingly central to the scientific progress and technological innovation. Section 6 establishes a pilot program of 1-year seed grants for new investigators to help improve funding rates for young investigators and stimulate higher-risk research. Section 7 encourages university-industry partnerships to make every federal research dollar go further and to engage the private sector in setting research priorities in areas of national need. Section 8 requires funded investigators to report on activities to mentor postdoctoral research scholars, the most under-mentored, undercompensated, and under-recognized segment of the higher education STEM pipeline. Section 9 requires NSF-funded institutions to train covered individuals, in particular students, in the responsible and ethical conduct of research. Section 12 encourages continuity of funding for certain STEM education programs that can continue to demonstrate success without requiring them to redesign and recompete their proposal every 5 years. Section 13 requires an evaluation of the impact of NSF's new cost-sharing policy on existing and potential university-industry partnerships. In addition to the items just listed, the bill has several other provisions to address administrative and budget issues at the Foundation, require reports on areas of interest to the committee, and ensure that important programs continue to receive adequate attention and funding. As you can see, we did not just copy what was done before. I think we listened to the feedback of people from a broad spectrum and improved what had, the good work that had preceded us. I'd like to thank my colleague, Dr. Ehlers, and other members of the committee, including Ms. Hooley and Ms. Johnson, for their thoughtful contributions to this bipartisan bill. With your input, we have a stronger bill that addresses the needs of a broad range of stakeholders in the scientific community. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1867 and yield the floor to my friend, Mr. Ehlers.
I thank Chairman Baird for yielding, but also and especially I thank Chairman Baird and the committee staff for their hard work on this bill. It's an excellent bill, and I'm pleased that a large bipartisan group of members of this committee have joined me in co-sponsoring the National Science Foundation Authorization Act of 2007. This bill would provide a 3-year authorization for the National Science Foundation, an agency that provides critical support for researchers, educators, and students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, usually abbreviated as STEM. Given the, quote, flattening, end quote, of our world today, these subjects are increasingly critical to our global competitiveness. The ability to innovate has always set the United States apart, and I believe that the expertise of the NSF has laid the groundwork for that distinguished reputation. American creativity has resulted in the highest standard of living in the world, as well as a large number of wonderful research developments and works and developments and ideas that have come out of that. And we certainly want to keep encouraging that creativity and innovation. The NSF Authorization Act of 2007 seeks to build on the foundation established over 60 years ago, when Vannevar Bush's recommendations on science policy led to the creation of this unique institution. Among other things, it fortifies the Math and Science Partnership Program, expands existing scholarship programs for STEM majors, and creates new opportunities for innovative ideas to be funded. I have said before that writing a bill such as this is particularly challenging because the NSF is typified by exceptional efficiency and success. Finding areas of needed change is not an easy task. Nonetheless, we have heard from a number of witnesses, both internal and external to the Foundation, who have offered helpful insights on possible ways to strengthen the NSF. The subcommittee has incorporated some of that feedback in the bill we are marking up today. I also expect that since this bill has been on somewhat of a fast track, there will be opportunities to improve it later in the process as we receive more comprehensive comments from NSF stakeholders. I am pleased that this bill establishes a pathway to double the total budget of the Foundation. In 2002, Congresswoman Biggert and I collaborated, and the Congress wholeheartedly supported a 5-year doubling path for the Foundation, though unfortunately appropriations have fallen far short of that target. Personally, I'd like to have us reinstitute that 5-year doubling, but I'm pleased that the bill at least establishes a 10-year instead of a 5-year pathway I hope that the levels authorized will also be appropriated, and I do hope that someday we will be able to speed up both the authorization and appropriation prospects. I know that many members of this committee will work tirelessly to make sure these numbers become a reality, and I would also call a floor that hopefully we can do better than that. In addition, given the strong bipartisan support for the NSF, I would have also preferred to see this bill authorize the agency for more than 3 years. Finally, I would like to mention an important provision absent from the bill we are marking up today. In the Antarctic, NSF performs important research on climate change, among other subjects that requires the use of icebreakers. These boats are expensive to maintain and operate, yet are a critical part of the NSF's mission. For many years, these icebreakers were provided without cost to the NSF by the Coast Guard. Due to the Coast Guard's lack of resources at this point, caused partly by terrorism, we have developed a new problem here. While we wanted to, and I believe the chair also wanted to do this, we wanted to solve this problem here. We could not do it because of jurisdictional problems. Another committee would have demanded that they look at the bill, and that would have held it up beyond reason. So I certainly concur with the chairman's activity in removing that part, but I just simply want to say I believe the committee needs to revisit this topic, perhaps on the floor, perhaps in conference, but we have to at some point include the statutory language necessary to ensure that NSF has the means to prudently manage Antarctic activities, including the use of icebreakers. I look forward to working with Chairman Baird. I appreciate him on this bill and congratulate him for the product, and I look forward to continuing to work with him and our colleagues on the bill. Yield back.
I thank Mr. Ehlers, and I would respond to your observation about the icebreakers that I fully share your commitment, and it is definitely something we'll take up in the committee. It is an essential part of our polar activities, and we will make sure what we can, but you're right about the jurisdictional issues, and that is indeed the reason that it's not particularly addressed in the bill as it stands now. Without objection, I would indicate that members may place any statements in the record at this point. I would ask unanimous consent that the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point, and that members proceed with the amendments in the order of the roster. Without objection, so ordered. The first amendment is to be offered by Eddie Bernice Johnson from Texas. She is not here, and I will offer the amendment in her stead. She has been, as many of you know, a tireless advocate of education for women and disadvantaged minorities, and this amendment and the following will reflect her commitment to that. This amendment would require National Science Foundation to submit a plan to Congress each year for how it will allocate its education and human resource funds. Section 7 of the current NSF law mandates that the agency submit a similar plan for the research and related activities portion of its budget. However, there has not been a requirement for NSF to report on how it will allocate its budget for education and human resource activities. This amendment mandates such a plan. It requires that this plan include a description of how the education and human resource funding allocations will, 1, affect the average size and duration of the E&HR grants supported by NSF, 2, will affect trends in research support for the effective instruction of math, science, engineering, and technology. 3, affect the K-20 pipeline for the study of STEM. And 4, encourage the interests of underrepresented minorities in STEM and help them prepare to pursue post-secondary studies in this field. Careful planning of NSF's education budget is important to achieving our shared objective of expanding the pool of scientists and engineers and improving the quality of math and science education in the U.S. For this reason, I support the amendment and urge its application. Well, it occurs to me I perhaps should have had the clerk read the amendment first. So the clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 1867, offered by Ms. Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. And having already articulated the reasons I support the amendment, I'll now invite anyone. I was so excited to offer Eddie's amendment. I'm happy to offer anyone else who wishes to make any additional comments. Hearing none, the motion occurs in the amendment. All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The yeas have it. The amendment is agreed to. The second amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the gentlelady from Texas. I'll again offer the amendment on her behalf, but this time the clerk will report the amendment before I do.
Amendment to H.R. 1867 offered by Ms. Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading without objection, so ordered, and I will recognize myself for 5 minutes to explain the amendment. This amendment, which I'm also offering on behalf of Congresswoman Johnson, was drafted also in cooperation with Congressman Silvestre Reyes. It would direct the NSF to work with National Academy of Sciences to produce a report that contains policy suggestions to increase diversity in STEM. Current workforce trends compiled by NSF and other entities demonstrate that African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, and other minorities are not entering STEM fields at rates proportionate to their numbers in our population. The amendment states that the Foundation shall enter into an arrangement with the National Academy of Sciences for a report to be transmitted to Congress not later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this act about barriers to increasing the number of underrepresented minorities in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. The report shall also identify strategies for bringing more underrepresented minorities into the STEM workforce. As co-chair of the Diversity and Innovation Caucus, Congresswoman Johnson has been a clear leader in the House on this issue, has worked tirelessly to ensure that members of underrepresented minorities have greater opportunities to enter and succeed in our science, technology, engineering, and math workforce. I commend her and Congressman Reyes for their commitment and would urge adoption of this amendment. Are there any additional members? Mr. Ehlers is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very minor point. I do support the amendment. But Mr. Reyes' name was mentioned. Is he a member of this committee?
No, he is not, but he worked with Ms. Johnson.
All right. Well, I think his name cannot be on an amendment offered in the committee.
Okay, I appreciate that point. I was merely giving him credit where credit is due, but not officially as the amendment. Thank you. Any additional comments on the amendment? I appreciate that. Without any objection, then, we'll proceed with the vote. A vote occurs on the amendment. Those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment is adopted. The third amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the gentlelady and my near neighbor, Ms. Hooley from the state of Oregon, who has also been a champion of these sorts of issues. Ms. Hooley, are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 1867 offered by Ms. Hooley of Oregon.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with reading without objection, so ordered. I recognize the gentlelady from Oregon for 5 minutes to explain her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd first like to thank you and the ranking member for all of your work on this issue and for your staff's willingness to work with my office to ensure this legislation is the best that it can be. I know that my colleagues join me in recognizing the importance of promoting STEM education in this country as a means of preserving America's place in the global economy. My amendment does just that by seeing that a program with a proven track record for producing researchers and engineers is given the funding that it deserves in order to continue to serve our country's students. My amendment establishes specific funding levels for the research experiences for undergraduate programs rather than having it exist as part of the general budget for the research and related activities section. This is an important designation to make since the REU program has seen its funding not increase at the same rate as the rest of the foundation. Anecdotal evidence suggests that students who are able to participate in REU programs and be trained in research are more likely to pursue careers and further education in STEM disciplines, becoming researchers, engineers, technicians, math and science teachers that our nation so desperately needs. In my own district, students at Willamette University in Salem, Oregon, and Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, have taken advantage of these funds to participate in summer research programs both at their own schools and at schools across the country. In addition, larger research universities in my state, like Oregon State University, conduct summer research programs that draw REU students from across the country. The cross-pollination that occurs when students from different institutions and different regions have a chance to work together benefits the students, the host schools, and the schools that the students return to. Again, I thank the chairman for his support for this amendment and for the REU program, and I urge my colleagues to join me in seeing that this program has the funding that it deserves. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. Are there any other members?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, gentlemen.
Yeah, I have a question for Ms. Hooley. Now, you said that these programs have been funded in another category in the past. Is that correct?
Well, they have been under a general funding category, and what's happened, those funds have gone down. For example, 2 years ago they were at $58 million, then they went to $56 million, and so what we're doing is saying they're an important part, they need their own designation, and we put them in as, instead of being in the general category, they're put separate from that.
So did we reduce the general category by the amount commensurate with what you're specifically earmarking?
No, the general category stays the same. It just designates that these go up on an annual basis.
So then we added additional authorization with this rather than making it neutral, or?
No, it's neutral.
The gentleman would yield momentarily. Essentially what happened was we firewalled this within the existing program. The authorization already exists to allocate funds in this fashion. What has happened is basically those funds have been used for other purposes, thereby leaving less for this important area. And all this amendment does, it doesn't create a new program. It just recognizes one and firewalls a portion of the existing program for that purpose, recognizing its importance.
And this amendment does not increase the amount of authorization in the original bill, is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
No.
I thank you, gentlewoman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman for his question. Mr. Ehlers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really torn in this amendment because I very strongly support the program. It's an excellent program, and I've seen the results of it myself. And I also support the intent of the amendment. At the same time, we have always tried to minimize the amount to which we subdivide the NSF budget and authorize bits and pieces of it for a couple of reasons. First of all, they operate under an organic act, and they've been given considerable freedom to operate within that. Another reason is that if we start designating or authorizing separately, that may well lead to this becoming a line item at some point. And very often line items like that are more susceptible to attack rather than simply lumping it together and letting the foundation decide. Another factor is that the decreases of the past, let's see, just the last two budgets went down. In fact, 08 is up slightly from 07. 07 was down a little. But that was an abysmal year financially all the way around. So I'm torn. I would think a better approach would be a sense of Congress or else report language saying how important we believe this is and encouraging the foundation to increase the amount allocated to it, thereby not infringing on their wishes but also making it clear what our wishes are. And I think it would probably have the same effect without impinging on their ability to make their decisions freely. My concern is not so great that I will oppose the amendment or fight against it, but I just wanted to register that point, and I hope as this bill proceeds, we can try to work out an accommodation that ensures that these institutions do get this money because they should have it, and frankly I think it should be increased, but also we'll make it clear that we do not want to break with tradition and start authorizing relatively small programs, which that might in some way make them more susceptible in the future. So I will be happy to support the amendment and continue working with you and the sponsor of the amendment to see if we can come up with a good solution to that problem. Thank you. Yield back.
I respect and appreciate the gentleman's comments. I'll yield myself 5 minutes. As both Mr. Ehlers and I have both taught at the university level and taught undergraduates, I think we both know personally the absolute importance of providing high-quality research opportunities for undergraduates, both because when they graduate, they will be expected to have certain skill levels that they'll acquire from doing research themselves, but also this is the seed corn, if you will, for our graduate programs. And underfunded or under-equipped undergraduate opportunities will limit their ability to do that. And it's almost precisely because this is a relatively small portion of the NSF's budget overall that I think it's important that we provide some protection for that. I, however, agree that we don't necessarily want to micromanage these NSF funding bills. At the same time, we want to, I think it's valid for the Congress to put down a marker on behalf of undergraduate education. If one looks at the relative percentages of expenditures that are dedicated to that function versus other uses, and I think that's what Congresswoman Hooley's focusing on. I commend her for that as a former educator herself, and when you visit our colleges and universities and you see the vast bulk of the students there are indeed in the undergraduate programs, making sure we have a bit of protection for them is sound. I appreciate the gentleman's indication that he'll be supportive of this, but I also think we can probably work together to see how we can best recognize and respect your concerns while protecting this, I think, important function of NSF for the literally hundreds of thousands of undergraduates who have a potential to benefit from it. Other members wishing to offer comments or amendments? With that, the motion occurs on the vote. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other amendments? Hearing none, the vote will be on the bill H.R. 1867, the National Science Foundation Authorization Act of 2007, as amended. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Those are the kind of votes we like. I recognize Mr. Ehlers to offer a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the subcommittee favorably report H.R. 1867 as amended to the full committee. Furthermore, I move that staff be instructed to prepare the subcommittee legislative report and make necessary technical and conforming changes to the bill as amended in accordance with the recommendations of the subcommittee.
The question is on the motion to report the bill favorably. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Additionally, subcommittee members may submit additional or minority views on the measure. I want to thank the members for their attendance, all those who contributed to this, particularly the staff for their long hours of hard work. With that, this concludes our subcommittee markup.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the point on the Sylvester.